Okay, so I have just a little announcement, as everyone on here almost knows, but I got engaged yesterday. So we are, yay, super excited about that. Yay, yay, yay. So Nick is on our call, but he proposed to me yesterday and it was the best thing ever. So
you better be smiling, Nick.
I am very happy. Nick is at work, but he works on the golf course and he's just logging in to support me, which is awesome. Nick, thanks everybody. He's so cute. But anyways, I am very smiley and it doesn't really make sense, the topic today for me. So I'm going to try and, kind of get into the zone about this, but I'm really happy. So I don't need to cope about anything right now. So, anyways, Mom, you can go ahead if you have anything to say.
I think I also know everybody on the call. We just always like to start out with who we are, just in case there are new people. And so I'm Morgan's mom, which means I'm also Nick's future mother-in-law, since that's the topic of the moment. Or fabulous, or favorite, or whatever you want the F to stand for. Anyway, I am also a licensed clinical social worker. And so together, Morgan and I cover mental health and athlete mental health. And I guess we were both athletes, but I offer the clinical approach to what our topic is today. And Morgan, why don't you go ahead and, I think everybody knows, but why don't you go ahead and just chat about why we're here, and then we'll get started.
Okay, perfect. And I guess I didn't introduce myself, but my name is Morgan. Everybody knows me here, but I played at Ohio State. I played softball and I played professionally overseas a couple of years. And now I work in clinical research and I am a coach. I coach young pitchers. And we are here today just because we just see a huge problem in the world right now, especially the sporting world, in terms of mental health. And it has just been crazy watching it and feeling like we're not doing anything for it. So the name Tough It Out, an impossible expectation, is just kind of a play on words, since as an athlete, you're always told to tough it out and you're expected to just do that and just be better and have no problems mentally whatsoever just because you're strong. And that's just not the way it is. And so we wanted to start this call. We're so happy more people are joining us. And today we're just talking about just a few techniques that we can use in the moment. Mom will teach us a few, and then I'll just talk about my favorites. And we can just kind of go over a few that you guys have if you want to at the end, and maybe just if you want to put in a few questions, answers, things like that, we will do that. So Mom, you can go ahead.
Okay, well, I did want to start with a couple of things that I wanted to mention that I've learned in the last the last 8 hours. One was I learned from my husband, JB, that his coworker and one of our high school friends' son, who's 20 years old, suicided over the weekend. And so that's always a reminder as to why we're here. I don't know what his athletic status was or anything, but it's just a reminder every day when you hear about another suicide, and certainly when it's somebody you know in your own hometown, it's just like, what was going on? What could be happening? And it's hard for me to not like reach out and be like, what happened? What can we do? So I think that's a good reminder. And then also, I actually got a call from one of my clients in my private practice from her mom today. She's 11 years old and she's a multi-sport athlete at 11, but I mean, she plays volleyball, basketball, and softball. And she is struggling big time with that kind of 11-year-old sports group. She's from a small town. She's not one of the popular families that have the money and the gear and the influence and all the things. And I'm going to be meeting with her on Thursday to really talk about how to stay in the game, even when you have that kind of conflict early on, because she's ready to quit sports, basically, because the coaches, obviously I'll talk to her about attitude and work ethic and all those kinds of things, but it's more like she's an unknown. And so they don't know what to do with her. And even though she's very athletic, she is having a really hard time finding her way on these teams. And so, of course, what I'm going to encourage her to do is be coachable, work hard, stick it out, not tough it out, but stick it out. And then also just kill it on the field or the court or whatever it is and be amazing. And they can't help but like you. So, and of course, as most of you know, in the early years, it's the parents that are the coaches, and her parent isn't a coach. And so it was just another interesting example today of this little athlete who it's exactly where she should be, but it's not an easy path. And so trying to get her to figure out how to stay in the sports and do the things she loves without having to leave her community or leave her school. So I thought that was a really interesting one and reminder today. So I'm going to talk some about self-regulation, coping, and grounding techniques. We listed all those words because they're used pretty interchangeably. You might hear from somebody that, you know, you need to learn some coping skills, or you need to know what grounding is all about, or you need to know how to regulate your emotions or your anxiety or whatever it is. So we basically used all of the terms just so that it's a little easier to understand. And Cindy will know quite a bit about this today and hopefully be able to offer some insight as well. We are both EMDR therapists. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's quite a complicated name and doesn't seem to apply quite as much in the work that we do, but it really is the number one treatment for trauma. But it's also the techniques we learn in working with people who have survived trauma is really learning about the brain and body connection and what trauma does to your actual brain and body. And so learning how to regulate that can help you in the moment. And that's what we wanted to talk a little bit about today was like, how do you get yourself basically regulated in the moment? We've talked a little bit about longer term therapeutic techniques and different things like that. And of course, we recommend all of that. But this is just some tools that you can use right away with your, Kat could use it in her classroom, Nick could use it in his classroom, John could use it with his athletes, anybody could use it in whatever situation they're in. This is just not for athletes. So we're going to talk a little bit about the brain and body first. And Morgan has an image she's going to show you where we're really talking about the basic parts of the brain. And so there are 3 parts of the brain that you're going to see on your screen right now in relation to self-regulation and coping and grounding and all those things. So we have 3 major parts of the brain. The neocortex, which is your frontal part of your brain, where we think of that as your thinking brain. Then we also have your limbic brain, which is your emotional brain, and then your brain stem that basically keeps you alive. And the interesting thing, you've probably heard flight, fight, or freeze, which is really the brain's immediate reaction to any sort of danger. And so whenever you're amped up, if it's, like I said, being nervous or angry or whatever emotion is coming at you, your brain is gonna decide the best way to keep you safe. And so that is the reason I wanted to show this brain image is when we talk about brain and body, we're talking about where that activity is happening in the brain and what you need. So one of my favorite examples from my training was really about saying, you've probably heard people say like, I flipped my lid. That might be an older term, but it's basically saying I lost it, right? So when that happens, what's typically happening is one part of your brain is firing, and in that case, it's your limbic brain. It's overstimulated, it's firing, and the rest of your functions shut down. So in this image of the brain, one part of the brain can really fire at a time. And so that when that limbic brain is firing, your thinking brain is not. So that's where it's like, people will say to me all the time, I know this isn't true, but I can't stop reacting this way. And the reason that's happening is because I know this isn't true as a cognitive process. But the emotion or the thing that's getting you fired up is the limbic process. And so the two places can't fire at the same time. And so what we want to do is get ourselves calmed down so that we can actually use that limbic brain and work through whatever it is. If it's an argument with your partner, if it's an antsy little kid who, you know, just came to school and they're all fired up from some traumatic thing that's happening at home and you're expecting them to learn, it's not going to happen. So we need to get that limbic brain charge settled down so that we can work through the process. So it would be the same thing in sports. You know, I can't miss, I can't miss, I can't miss. You're busy, you know, worrying about failing in your limbic brain when really the thinking brain knows you have all the skills you need to take the shot or whatever it is. So the reason I wanted to talk about the image is just so you could understand when I start to show you some techniques that will actually lower that limbic brain charge, as we call it, you understand what I'm talking about. So if you've ever been in that position where, another one I like to talk about, we're going to talk about body image on another session, but when you think about somebody who overeats or eats to cope, this is a really good example of that. It's like, I know everything about carbs and exercise and water, and good job on that water, Morgan. I know all that stuff, but when I'm in the moment and I just got home from work and I'm wiped, I start eating the potato chips. That's because that limbic brain is firing and saying, feed me, feed me, feed me some comfort food, rather than I know what I really need to do is have some water and decompress and all those things. So I don't just want to talk about it in athletics because this can happen basically in any setting. So the tools you're going to learn today, you can literally implement immediately. And one thing we're going to learn is called butterfly hug or monkey tap, and I'll explain it. But I teach this a lot of times to preschool and kindergarten teachers. They do circle time, but circle time does not mean that your little bodies and brains are calm. It just means you're supposed to sit on your little carpet and behave. So teaching teachers of young children how to do this can really get them in a space to be able to sit still and learn. And it could be the same with a team or a family or anybody. So the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly was just body. So a lot of times people do not understand that we hold so much of that, whatever it is, whatever the emotion is, we hold that in our bodies. And one of the things Cindy and I do a lot in our work is getting people to help themselves recognize where they feel things in their body. And when you've had elevated reactions to things, oftentimes you disconnect from your body. So you might hear, you know, the phone rings and it's somebody that doesn't ever call you. So you immediately go, oh, something's wrong, and your chest tightens up or your gut hurts or your shoulders tighten, whatever that is. Really paying attention to those parts of your body and where you feel that is something we work hard on. And we'll do a little bit of that today, just to get you to recognize that this is not all happening in the brain, it's also happening in the body. So Morgan, can you put it on the bilateral stimulation? So I want to talk a little bit about bilateral stimulation. So EMDR, which is that eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a very old technique. It actually started in the 70s, and it was all about eye movement to stimulate this bilateral stimulation, which basically accesses both sides of your brain. And we're going to do a couple of those today, so that's why I want to talk about it. So I know you can all read, but I'm going to read to you anyway. Bilateral stimulation activates an accelerated processing effect that encourages an extraordinary free associative process between the mind and body that causes thoughts, emotions, images, memories, body sensations, dreamlike fantasies, and other aspects of perception to break out of their old patterns and move rapidly to new levels of self-awareness. So in a nutshell, what this is saying is by using bilateral stimulation, which is right-left body movement, you're able to break your pattern of thought, right? Every time so-and-so calls me, there's a crisis. So my brain reacts that way. This is a way to break that process. So every time we play this team, we lose. That's just an old pattern of thought. Yes, it's based on a true experience, but you can break that and recreate it. So this EMDR therapy can work really well with athletes as well. When you're talking about you're in a funk and you can't, you guys are on a losing streak, or your jump shot isn't working, or whatever it is, that you can actually use this same process we're going to talk about today, preparing for an athletic event or getting over a stuck space. So that can be really helpful as well. So that's the basics of the brain and the bilateral stimulation. When I talk about bilateral stimulation, people look at me like, oh, what is that? My favorite thing to talk about is, one, taking a walk. So when you're amped up and, you need to regulate yourself, I'm sure people say all the time, go take a walk. And yes, you get fresh air and exercise and sometimes sunshine, unless you live in Montana. And that's all good stuff. But really what you're doing is you are activating your bilateral stimulation naturally, your right, left movement. So as you're walking, your nervous system is getting back in check. Your brain is using this free association on both sides, and you're able to calm down. And so that's exactly what we're talking about today, but you can't always go take a walk when you're on the mound or on the court or in the classroom. And so we're going to talk a little bit about ways to do that while you're sitting wherever you're sitting, or standing wherever you're standing. And then the other one I like to talk a little bit about is a baby. So you have an unregulated baby. That is when a baby is screaming their face off, and they don't know why either, right? Because babies can't talk. So are they hungry? Are they tired? Or do they need comfort? What's going on? So again, bilateral stimulation. We rock our babies. Cassidy, this is how you rock a baby. You're going to do that pretty soon. So naturally, we start rocking. And that's because that soothes a baby. So we already have these techniques in our history of, being humans. And so this is just reminding us that those are some ways that we can self-regulate, which is a fun therapeutic term. So I'm going to start by talking about butterfly hug or monkey tap. These are called, they're interchangeable. Sometimes people like monkey tap and sometimes they like butterfly hug, but basically if you can see me, what I'm doing is a butterfly hug, right? This looks like a butterfly, but also I'll talk a little bit about the monkey. So in nature, primates cross their arms over their chest and tap their shoulders in an alternating manner to self-soothe. So self-soothing and self-regulation are the same thing. So in this exercise, we're going to duplicate that experience with mindful intent as a way of being gentle with ourselves and practicing self-soothing. So this is the one I usually teach to teachers of young children is, at circle time or when they're transitioning between, playtime to circle time. This is when this would take effect. But I also have used it before a game. I've used it I have clients who have a lot of anxiety with kind of public or social anxiety. And so the grocery store is overwhelming or whatever. This is something you can easily do in the line at the grocery store. Nobody knows what you're doing and it doesn't look that weird. And I mean, but it doesn't really. And then also we've talked about this a couple weeks ago. We were talking about transitioning. This is also a really good way, very quick, easy way to transition between things. So before and after work, before you're going to have a meeting with your boss and ask for a raise, those kinds of things right before a game. This is a really simple way to self-regulate and get your body in check. So I'm going to ask those of you who are comfortable with this to practice it with me, and I'll walk you through it. If you feel comfortable, please go ahead and close your eyes. If you don't, that's fine. You'll get the most out of it by closing your eyes. because it allows you to, again, get out of your cognitive brain and into your limbic brain or your emotional brain. So you're not trying to think about what I'm doing, you're just responding. So go ahead and wherever you're sitting, if you can put both feet on the ground, that can be really helpful because it helps you have an open stance, but also be able to self-regulate your whole body. So go ahead and cross your arms over your chest with your eyes closed. And they don't have to be right on your shoulders or right on your elbows, just whatever's comfortable to you to make that kind of butterfly shape. And just begin tapping your hands against your body in a slow, deliberate, alternating fashion. Just find a pace that for you is slow, soothing, or grounding. Tapping quickly can induce anxiety. So you may want to spend a set or two just finding your ideal place. I'm going to ask you to tap for about a minute. Keep your eyes closed and just breathe deeply. Okay, and then when you're ready, just put your hands in your lap and breathe. You can repeat these steps as many times as you need for grounding, rest, or relaxation. I'd like to ask you to notice what happens when you do a process like that. Did anybody or does anyone want to talk about how they feel just doing a very simple activity like that?
I'll start. I've done this one before, but it's just funny how little you do it, even if you know how to do it or what to do. I know for me, like I have so many moments I can think of that this would be helpful. And I don't know if this is a part of it, Mom, but for me, it was really calming to hear it, like to hear the tap each time. I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but I really liked the sound. It was just like white noise almost.
Exactly. Anyone else? What I always notice, I ask my clients or whoever I'm teaching this to, like, what did you notice about your breath? And typically they'll say my breath slows down. And what I always notice is my shoulders tend to sag. I'm someone who sits like this a lot, right? Anxious and busy. And so it's a really good reminder for me that my shoulders need to relax. Again, kids love this because monkey tap and butterfly hug sound really fun. As you can see on the bottom, there are some modifications. You can do this by tapping your knees or tapping on your knees or just tapping your feet. Like, you know, if you were listening to music and you just go back and forth and back and forth. So the cool thing about that is you can do it anywhere. So sometimes if you're going into a stressful situation, again, 30 seconds, 1 minute of doing an exercise like this can just, again, put oxygen in your brain, calm you down, get you in a relaxed state so you can go into whatever it is you need to do in a very calm way. So this will be on the website for you to try, practice. People will think you're silly, but it's pretty fun and absolutely works. So that is a butterfly hug or monkey tap.
Hey, Jib,
something. Yes.
Can I add to that just real fast?
Of course.
Like as a parent, one of the things that like I have done for my kids, like at a sporting event, like before they're going to go throw or something, if I can tell they're dysregulated, I will just put my hands on their shoulders and tap, and they know, you know what I'm doing, and they'll just kind of sit back and then start focusing on left and right. And it can just help get them back out of that place. So it's like, if they don't want to do it themselves and they're willing to let a parent or a teammate or something, you know, there's other options that way too. So
that's a great idea, Cindy. Thank you. For sure. And if, again, thinking about that with a baby, right? If you have a baby who's unregulated and isn't somebody who rocks, you can pump legs, tap shoulders. It is a very gentle, soothing motion, but it literally, and keeping the eyes closed to me is one of the best things, because again, it gets you out of that cognitive brain and into your limbic brain. So thanks for that, Cindy. But try it out, you guys. I think it is something you will find a way to use, because everybody has somebody in their life, maybe themselves, that need to do that.
I think also the finger, I don't know if you guys can see the one at the bottom, it says making okay signs. You could do that at work so easily. I just think about like sometimes when I just get really overwhelmed underneath, I could just do it underneath my desk, you know, and just, I mean, we already probably do it and don't know, you know, like I know sometimes for me, like even while mom was talking about that, my toes were tapping left, right, just while she was talking, which my legs are hanging on where I'm sitting. So that's probably why. But at the same time, you just don't even realize how much you're doing it, which is super cool.
Right. And your body is naturally, or the human body is naturally, in this case, monkey's body is naturally inclined to do it. And so it's more about being aware of what you're doing. The other thing I would mention is breathing in general. I think we're all very used to everybody saying, take a deep breath, take a deep breath. And one thing I've learned actually from a physical therapist more than on my own was the importance of belly breathing. So we tend to breathe in our chest only, right? So even a deep breath is like, but really a deep breath should blow your belly out and back in. So if you're not noticing that your belly is coming out when you breathe, you are only doing chest breathing, and belly breathing is actually the most effective. So especially those of us on here who are women, we've been spending our lives holding our bellies in, right? It's like, always hold your belly in. And I've actually been trained to let the belly breathe, like let it out. And it's a hard thing to break. But boy, is it important. It can be so very helpful, and it slows down your breathing too, because chest breathing, you can just go, right? But a belly breath, you can't do quickly. So I would encourage you to practice that too. Okay. Any questions on monkey tap or butterfly hug? All right. So we're going to do another one. This is one that I would say is not something you will likely do for other people. It's not going to cause harm or anything. Typically, I do this with my EMDR tapping machine, but I still want you to experience it because it will and can be very comforting. We're just not necessarily doing the tapping side of this, which you could definitely do by tapping your knees or anything. I just want you to experience this visualization. My guess is most of you have participated in visualizations before, and this can be, and Morgan's going to explain some a little bit later too, where you're imagining yourself succeeding at whatever you're doing, or you're trying to calm down so you can go to sleep, all those types of things. So this is definitely one I would say that's for probably 12-year-olds and up. Maybe some little people would be able to do this, but you do have to focus and follow directions, and not all little people are able to do that. So I just want to have you experience this. So what I'd like you to do first, each of you, just think about when you're worried, anxious, upset, angry, any of your emotions, if you notice where you feel that in your body, right? And I think I mentioned all of you, I hold a lot in my shoulders. So I will notice by the end of the day, my shoulders are up, my neck is tense. And so I know where I hold most of mine. I can certainly have a chest or gut reaction as well, but for me, that's where I hold it. Some people have no idea where they hold it. So I just like you to think about on your own, where you notice where you hold your stuff in your body, because we'll need you to just kind of identify that for this practice. So again, I'm going to have you close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. And again, have both feet on the ground. And it's very similar to the monkey tap, except there's a longer process that we're going to go through with this. So this is called Light Stream. And that's kind of the image, is that light stream. So using the visual power of your imagination can be remarkably healing, especially to clear out some of the body level distress or discomfort that we were talking about. So what are you noticing in your body right now? And even if you're not experiencing anything unpleasant now, where do you typically experience distress or discomfort in your body? Here is a very simple guided visualization exercise that you can use to work with that distress or discomfort. So first, imagine that a bright and healing light is forming overhead. This light can be whatever color you want it to be, whatever you associate with healing, happiness, goodness, or any other positive quality. If you don't like the idea of a light, you can think of it simply as a color or an essence. Go ahead and keep your eyes closed and just take a deep breath. And just pay attention to whatever it is you're noticing. Now think about this light beginning to move through your body or over your body, like a shield or a force field. You choose. From the top of your head, moving inch by inch, slowly until it reaches the bottom of your feet. Now take a deep breath and just pay attention to what you noticed. Now you're going to spend a few minutes just noticing the presence of this light or essence in your body. Notice if you want the light to have any other qualities besides color, like texture or a sound, a temperature or a smell. Go ahead and take a deep breath. And just pay attention to whatever you noticed. Now draw your attention back to where you first may have noticed or described the distress at the body level. What's happened to it? If the distress is still there on some level in the body, think about deepening your breath so it makes the light or essence more brilliant and intense, so brilliant and intense that the distress dissolves into it. Okay, take a deep breath. And just ask yourself, what happened to that distress at the body level? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So whenever I do this process, and it actually took me a few times in training to really buy into this, because I'm definitely a cognitive person. I like to keep control and know what's happening all the time. So it's very hard for someone like me to do this level of work in the limbic brain and body. And when I finally got it, my light was like the glittery gold from Twilight that the vampires look like when they're in the sun. And so when I am able to have that light move through my body, it's warm, it's shiny, it's glittery. And then when it goes to my part in my body that I hold my distress, it kind of explodes like, you know, a star or something. That's just my experience. What did any of you notice going through that process? Anyone?
I'll go. For me, this is super funny because mom tried to have me do this like probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I just laughed the whole time and I could not even get there, kind of like how she was saying. But mine, I don't know. I thought it was, you know, kind of hippie or something that I just didn't really buy into it. but the more I think about like everyone's light is going to be different. So like this time I tried to do something a little more what I would appreciate or what I would like. And I did kind of, if anyone's seen Moana, I did like the flowers where like at the very end when she turns the volcano into flowers and like, I don't know, plants and everything and life. And that's what I did around my whole body. And it was actually so much better. And my stress that I hold is in my lower back. And instead of exploding like mom's, I had it like straighten my back, kind of. It felt like it was like supporting it and like pushing it against it. And I also want to say that these are all options, right? Like if you think this one is total BS, then don't do this one, you know. But if this is the one that you felt the best in, then do this one if you have time. I know for me, I wouldn't do this at work, but maybe when I can't sleep or something like that is a good time for when I would do it. So that was my experience.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to share? It is very yogi. And like Morgan said, there are some that feel like they fit for you and some that don't. I encourage my clients to try different ones because we tend to go to the safe one that is like the easiest. And this one definitely forces you to let some of your guard down, which again, in my experience, that is what I had to do, is really kind of buy into it. So when we do this in therapy, we call this resourcing, but it's the same thing as developing a coping skill, developing grounding techniques and all of that. And so I give my clients the option, like, here are all the things we can learn. Which one do you want to learn? And I'm not teaching you all of them today. I have one more I'm going to do. Probably this one is the most popular, or the one you've heard of the most. It's not always the easiest to do. So we're going to do one more. And this one is called Calm, Safe Place, or Happy Place. And it's another guided visualization. So I'm gonna have you do the same process where if you feel comfortable, I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes. Again, this is somewhere that you would have to be parked or in a private office space or whatever. It's not quite as easy to do as monkey tap, because monkey tap or butterfly hug you can do anywhere. Even if there's noise around you, this one would be a little more difficult to do. So this exercise and its many variations are classics in guided imagery work. Sometimes called the happy place, the purpose of this exercise is for you to sense into a place that you've been or that you can imagine going. So you're going to choose a place where bringing it up and engaging it will likely elicit a pleasant, happy, or safe experience. And one unique thing about this one is try to keep other people out of this visualization. Make it just about you and the place. We can talk together, or we do talk together in private settings about what comes up for you. Like sometimes people will go to a place and when we find out it's actually not the safest place. So it's definitely a place you pick, and you can pick and choose how you want to do it. So again, I'm going to have you close your eyes and just allow a place you choose to come into focus. Let's scan your senses and allow each sense to experience the place. What are you seeing? How would you describe the colors? What are the sounds, if any, in your place? Are there any smells or tastes? If so, just notice those. Where are your hands and feet? Notice any sensations that your hands and feet are experiencing. If you notice that you're starting to go back into your cognitive brain and kind of think about this too much rather than feeling about it, take a deep breath. And just pay attention to what you're noticing while you're there. Now take a moment to notice the details. What is most noticeable to you? Take a moment to absorb that detail or those details. And then take a deep breath and just pay attention to what you noticed. Now I'll have you notice what you're doing in this place of yours. whether you're in stillness or in motion, pay attention to that. Go ahead and take a deep breath. And just ask yourself what you noticed. And then I'm going to ask you to just notice what your body is experiencing in this place. If you feel safe, comfortable, grounded, and positive, great. If there are things that are missing that make you feel unsafe or not comfortable, ask yourself what you need to make yourself feel more comfortable. And finally, if you wish, give your place and your experience a name or a phrase. That way, when you need to go to this place again in the future, that name or phrase will cue you to access the place whenever you might need it. Okay, go ahead and take a deep breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I'd again open it up to ask anybody if they feel comfortable sharing, what is their happy place? Anyone want to share?
I can share.
Okay.
My happy place is on my paddle board, floating down the river on a sunny, warm day. And so I just kind of use all my senses to be in that moment and feel the warmth and the movement and
nice.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Nice. Thanks, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Okay. Again, this is something I can imagine doing like in a team exercise, right? Everybody's in the gym, sitting in a circle on the floor, you dim the lights and you walk everybody through a happy place. It can also be done one-on-one or in any setting. If Cindy's pretty skilled at it, so she'd be able to just go there. Some people might need a guide like what I just did for you. So now Morgan is going to talk about some of the techniques she used and may still use in her life.
Also, I was just thinking there's probably a YouTube video that would walk you through that. I'm guarantee there would be. So I'll look for one and see if mom approves, and then I can share that one too, because like that one for me is awesome. I'm just eating a nectarine and I'm sitting in a canoe in this random lagoon and there's a waterfall. And it's just like, it's almost like a longing for that place. And then you just come back and you're like, oh, life is good.
Yeah. And how can I make that happen?
Yeah.
The other thing about these before you go, Morgan, is again, these are techniques we're sharing. They don't work for everyone, but the best part about them is they don't cause harm, right? The worst thing that's going to happen is you're not going to be able to get yourself to the place or imagine the light, that kind of thing. It's not a therapeutic technique that could cause harm for you if you were trying it on your own. So I'll leave it at that. And Morgan, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to start with how the beginning of this is for me, like the beginning of me doing anything like this. And it was always on the mound when I was pitching, and I had bases loaded. I had a full count. I had a high pressure situation. I felt like maybe I was going to get pulled out of the game soon. There's a big batter coming up. It was always those moments for me. One of the big ones that triggers me all the time is a game that was on ESPN that I played horribly in. And it even makes my heart race a little bit now. And sometimes I have to use these techniques when I think about that. And I've talked to my mom and Cindy about actually doing the EMDR about those kinds of things. And I think just recognizing what it is that triggers you in those moments is really essential. Sometimes at work, things that trigger me are like when I discover a problem with something, a system or a process in our work, and then it wasn't anything to do with me, and then I have to fix it. it makes me absolutely crazy, because to me, the person who did it should fix it. And that's just not the way it goes in the real world. So I have to do this all the time. My first one is going to be the 5 senses. I just put them here so we can talk through them. This one I did on the mound all the time. And I know Kat is on the call and she would agree with me, because we talked about this one all the time in college. It's just a really easy one to do in the moment. And it can be as fast or as slow as you want. When I was on the mound and there was bases loaded, or maybe I could feel myself getting amped to the point where I know that I'm either going to succeed and get through it, or I'm going to fail and get pulled. Like, it was always something similar to that. Maybe as a pinch hitter, yours is, I need to perform right now, or I won't get another opportunity. Maybe in work, you need to speak up at a call, speak up at a meeting in your team meetings, and you have to do that, or else you're going to feel like a failure for the rest of the day or whatever. So this one's super easy to go through. I'll just walk through what I would do when I was on the mound. So I would first just be standing there, and there is 10 seconds between a pitch. So I would do this really quickly. I would say, what do I see? And I'd always be turned backwards. I would be looking at my outfielder. I'd look at the sky. I'd look at the fence. I'd notice if there's any animals, anything like that, birds flying by. And then I would move to hearing. I would hear the crowd. I'd hear the crunch of people's cleats around me. I'd hear my teammates yelling. I'd hear my coach communicating to me, and you just kind of think about the things you want to hear. You can think of all the things that you're hearing or the things you want to hear. For me, I didn't want to hear other things when I'm on the mound. So I would choose to tune into nature sounds personally, or my teammates, because those are the two things that would calm me down. And then smell, that one is always a little weird for me. And so usually I just say I smell the dirt, or I smell something briefly. I don't want to delve into all the smells, but maybe that's your sense that you like. And so I would just smell the dirt, and I would just make sure I take a second to just at least notice it. And then taste, maybe you're chewing gum, maybe you can taste the fresh air, I don't know. But I always focused on touch. That was my biggest one that I liked. I love to feel just the things that you can control, right? So you can't control some of those other ones, but you can control what you're touching, and you can feel it. Only you can feel that, right? So when I was standing on the mound, I would feel where the pressure is on my cleats. I would feel how hard or soft the dirt was underneath. I would, feel the jersey on my skin. I'd feel, sweat coming down my face, or how my hair felt, or how it was tied, or if it was blowing in the wind. And all of a sudden you're just a human, and you're not a player. You're not a pitcher. You're not succeeding. You're not failing. You're just there. So that one was one of my favorite ones. I don't do this as much anymore, but I do know as an athlete, this was one that helped me a lot. Has anyone else ever done this one or something similar, or just want to say something about this one?
I've done this one. I learned about this actually this year, and I think it was really helpful. I think my big, the sense I used the most was vision. And that was the one I think that really helped calm me down, being able to really see what was around me and feel like I was in that present moment.
That's really cool, especially in a game. If you're up to bat or something, you can it's just a person there that's throwing to you, right? If you really think about it, whether you're playing Oklahoma or you're playing some tiny school, it doesn't really matter, right? That is a person that's pitching to you. You're in a game. This is fun. There's your parents in the stands, or there's your best friend in the dugout, or on first base, or whatever it is. And it is actually a really cool thing when you start to realize what you feel, because sometimes the game takes you out of that, right? You forget that you're a person. You forget that this is not all about a hit right now, or it's not all about all these things. You can actually focus in. So thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Morgan, can I quickly add too that the other reason why this works so well is, again, if you're in your body, noticing all of these things, right? What you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste, what you touch, what you smell, you can't be in your head. So people will often say, I'm so in my head, right? I think that's a Bachelor term from that show, The Bachelor. They were always in their head. Again, that is all about the thinking brain versus being outside of that thinking brain. And so getting yourself out of your head is exactly what you're doing here.
and in life and as an athlete, as a, I don't know, employee, these things are that you're usually stressed out about aren't real. A lot of times you're creating it, especially as a pitcher. For me, all these scenarios that I just created are totally not going to happen unless I force them to happen. You know, maybe I'm going to visualize it and it's going to happen, manifestation, right? But at the same time, like in terms of athletic ability, you have the talent. And that is the only, like if you had 100% just your physicality, then you would be able to do it every time, right? The problem is sports aren't 100% your body. They're mostly mental. And that's the big thing here is if you are in your thinking brain, you can talk yourself out of the fact that you are great. And that's one thing I didn't learn until I was probably a junior in college, that I have control here and it's not ever going to be my physical. And for me, I worked my butt off in the weight room and I was working really hard in practice and I was, you know, eating right, doing the right things, like doing school. And I should have been able to trust my body and myself and be able to just do it, right? Because I know I can. And when I got over that barrier, I just performed so much better. Like you even just look at just what happened in my career. I got better when I figured out how to stay in the game physically, but mentally I can focus like on my emotions rather than just thinking and thinking and thinking. But it's always been my thing. It's never been that I can't do it. It's just that I can talk myself out of the fact that I can do it. So that is just one that I wanted to share with you guys. Does anyone have anything else before I move on? Okay. So this next one, I put a picture of a rainbow. That was from yesterday when I got engaged, yay. So sorry, I had to throw that in there again. But anyway, so this is one that I do now. This is one I do almost every single time I'm outside, every single time I'm stressed. And for me, it helps to do it in nature, but I also have done it when I don't have access to nature. So this one, I just call the rainbow. It's a grounding technique that I don't know if someone taught me it or if I thought of it on my own. I really have no idea. I'm sure that I didn't think of it on my own. But I look for the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow all around me. So I do it mostly in nature, and I know that I'm a little blessed because I live in Montana. So there are flowers of every color of the rainbow almost every time you're outside. So what I would always do is I would be on a hike, or I still do it. I just did it the other day on a hike with my dog Captain, and I am walking up the mountain and maybe I'm thinking so much because I just had a long day at work or blah, blah, blah. And rather than letting myself get stressed in my favorite thing to do, like hiking with my dog on a beautiful day, I ground myself so that I can just calm my brain down. And so first, I'd like to share that I'm also doing bilateral stimulation, which is another form of self-regulation, which is probably why I love hiking so much, or one of the main reasons. But I started doing it with the colors, and I would look for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. But then I started realizing for my brain, sometimes it was actually more stressful to do it in order. And so, because I'm like, wait, there was an orange and I haven't seen red yet. And then I start thinking in that way. And so what I've started to do is I walk up the mountain and whatever color I see first, I start there. And so I see a tree first or grass, and then I can check off green. And then maybe the sky is bright blue, so I can go up and I see blue. And so I check off blue. And then I walk and I see a red flower, like an Indian paintbrush, which is a really cool flower. You should Google it. And I'm like, oh, yay, now I got my R. And then I walk up. And whenever I decide to be done with, or if I figure out the whole rainbow, great. But sometimes I'll see a better blue or a better purple or a better orange that I'm like, oh no, I don't want the other one. I want this one. And then I just am totally immersed in nature. And then I can just be happy with where I'm at and what I'm doing. I've also done it inside. So in a meeting that's taking forever, or someone's talking about something that is totally wrong, or isn't something that you want to listen to, but you have to be there, or something like that, which maybe isn't super positive attitude, but you need to be present sometimes. But you also can be like, if you're listening to something that doesn't pertain to you, or if you're in class and you're not able to focus anyways, then I look around and I'd say red, like even right now, I see a red button that says I'm recording the call. And then I'd look for orange, and my keychain over there is orange. And then yellow, and Captain's collar right there is yellow, green. And you just go through the whole rainbow. And I've shared that on my Instagram story before, and I've had people just like, oh my goodness, this is a beautiful idea, because then you get to be in nature. We also get to just kind of notice the things around you. And so a lot of times I'll post that, and I'll post the colors that I saw that day. But yeah, anyways, that's one of the ones that's really, really easy to do, because almost everywhere you're at, there's at least the colors of the rainbow. And if you don't want to do it in order, then you don't have to. But if that makes you feel better, if being organized makes you feel better, then you could do it that way. You could do it backwards. But yeah, that's just another one that I love to do. If anyone has any comments on that one.
I was just thinking about John, who just, posted that he was on the subway in New York City, which we laugh a lot about his experiences on the subway. But really, if you were just trudging along on the subway, just waiting to get to work or get home or whatever's happening, you could totally do the rainbow process, because you're going to see every color. And just, even though you're on a subway, you could appreciate where you are. And so I hadn't thought of it like that.
And you can appreciate like even the fact that you can see colors. There's some people who can't see colors. So I sometimes get to that point. Like with John, my brother, he is the biggest lover of nature ever. And he's forced to be in Times Square or in Manhattan for the day, right? And so maybe you have to do fluorescent lights as your colors. But for me, a lot of people count their steps, or they, step on cracks of the sidewalk and things like that. But for me, I can't count my steps. I get stressed, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how many more steps am I going to be? How far is it? And so this is just a way of checking out in terms of time too, if you just need to relax.
Okay. So now, thank you for sharing those, Morgan. And we're on to any questions and answers. We just have a couple minutes. We're actually at the end, but we always want to allow time for questions and answers. So anything anybody is wondering about.
Or if you have a—
Okay, I got on this call late, Morgan. Morgan, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got on this call late, and I'm driving in my car, and I didn't know you got engaged.
Oh yeah, I was wondering when you were on my call, or when you were on the call, I was like, this is how I was going to tell you. I was so excited.
I literally, I'm in my car, and I didn't have good enough cell service for like the first 20 minutes. I'm like, I have to get on the call, and I missed the whole thing. So congratulations. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
And we'll post the video of today too, so you can watch it if you want. But
sorry, I did not mean to hijack your question answers. That's amazing though.
No, hey, that's okay. A question.
It's the best one. So
that was a question, guys. Okay, sorry, I'll mute my button again and keep driving. Okay,
the answer is she said yes.
I love it. I love it. Very cool. Awesome. Okay, I'll mute myself and go back to driving. Sorry.
Thank you. But also I wanted to say, if you had questions or answers, go ahead. But also if you had a technique that you do, we could maybe talk about like why it works, or we could talk about just what you do so that other people could use that one.
I can just add something just from the EMDR component that I think is interesting. Part of why they think EMDR works is because our body actually does this naturally when we're sleeping. So if you guys are familiar with what happens when you get into REM sleep, your eyes go back and forth in your head. And we've all heard the concept of just sleep on it, you'll feel better in the morning, right? Well, there's actually some truth to that, because what's happening is if you do get into REM sleep, your eyes go back and forth and you're reprocessing the events of the day. So actually, you can be asleep and be doing it too. So.
That's awesome. Especially makes me want to go to sleep, because then you don't have to try so hard. Because some of these, it's like, goodness, I don't know if I have time for that, or I don't know if I can focus enough for that today. And of course, there's time for 1 minute of monkey tap, of course, all the time. But this one is something you don't have to actually put effort into. So thanks for sharing that one.
Yeah, this is Patty. Hey, Morgan, I do have to say that, your engagement just took over the whole night. I'm really happy for you. And it makes me
happy. Thank you.
Okay, so to wrap it up, we're just going to remind everyone, like we do every week or every couple of weeks, where we want to offer the option to reach out for help. And so we taught some techniques today. And if you need more information about them, you didn't understand it, you forgot how it works, whatever, feel free to send us a message on Facebook Messenger about that. But also you can always send a message there too. If you don't know how to make this work in a team, classroom, family, whatever, we can help with that. If there's something you didn't feel comfortable sharing today, this is a great place to do that just one-on-one. And then, as we always talk about, seek out a professional. If your player, your family member, whoever, coworker needs help, feel free to reach out to a school counselor, a regular counselor, sports psychologist, parent, friend, coach. We're building resources for all of those people in this setting right now. And so they already have more information than they may have had before. And then, as always, because we are trying to help prevent suicides by athletes, the Suicide Lifeline is always there, both for you to ask for help, but also if you are somebody somebody's asking you for help and you're concerned about somebody, you can get some support there 24 hours a day. So those are our options. And Morgan, do you want to talk about when the next session will be because of the holiday?
Yeah, so there'll be 4th of July next Monday, or the next Monday we would plan on doing this. So we were thinking we would do it maybe on a Wednesday, or we could also just skip it and do a couple weeks after that. Does anyone have a preference? Like, would you rather do it the next week, or do you think it'd be fine to skip for a month since it's summer? Anyone? Okay, well, we'll talk about it. If we come up with something wonderful, we'll do it on the week of the 4th of July. It's also my favorite holiday, so maybe we won't. We'll see. But if you guys want to message us, then go ahead. And thank you for joining us. It was awesome.
Thanks, everyone.